Hello everyone on this lovely spring morning. Welcome to my channel, The Mental Traveler. I'm Caro, and today I'm excited because I'll be doing a movie review about one of my favorite films ever, Testament of Youth. It came out in 2015 and it was directed by James Kent. It's about 2 hours long and it stars Alicia Vikander, Kit Harington, Miranda Richardson, Emily Watson, Dominic West, Taron Egerton, Hayley Atwell, among others. Testament of Youth is an adaptation of the memoir by the same name, written by Vera Brittain, and the story deals with Vera's life and experiences during World War I. And I wish I could do a book review about the memoir as well, but I haven't been able to get it yet. Still, when I do, I shall be talking about Vera's life because I consider her a role model for many reasons. She was this amazing woman throughout all of her life, and I think that this film does a pretty good job in showing the way Vera had to sort of let go of her childhood and step into the shoes of a young woman in a very hard way. In any case, this is a wonderful film and I particularly recommend it to those who like period dramas and don't mind it if the movie is a little bit slow in its pace. And before I forget, if you want to avoid any spoilers, you can watch this video up to the point where I start reviewing the film, because afterwards I need to give away some plot details in order to back up my opinions with examples, so you have been warned. As I said, the movie is based on true events and it deals with the life of Vera Brittain when she was in her early 20s. It begins in 1914 at the eve of World War I, and at the start we see that Vera appears to have had a very idyllic childhood. She has loving parents, she adores her brother, they all live in a beautiful home in the English countryside, and yet there's one thing that doesn't allow Vera to be completely happy, and that's the fact that she dreams to going to Oxford and becoming a writer one day, even earning her keep in that manner. But 100 years ago, becoming a writer wasn't that desirable a fate for a young woman. Vera's parents would prefer it if she got married and had children, but Vera is sure that she's meant to be a writer and she's destined to go to Oxford. And putting this dream of hers aside, one day her brother brings some friends along to their house, and one of them in particular catches Vera's eye. He's called Roland Leighton, and he and Vera hit it off from the start because he's the first person to tell her that she should write, and this encouragement warms him up to her. And Roland is also a writer slash aspiring poet, and to nobody's surprise they soon fall in love. But their relationship is put on a standstill because World War I breaks out and Ronald wants to go to the front and fight along with Vera's brother and their other friend. And the film goes on to explore Vera's experiences at Oxford, at being a nurse during the Great War, and we get to find out what happens to her and her loved ones. I give this film a 5 out of 5 stars review for a lot of reasons. First, I love everything about it, from the plot to the costumes to the settings to the landscapes to the actors. And regarding the casting, I really like Alicia Vikander. I loved her ever since I saw her in A Royal Affair, and she just recently won an Academy Award, so I'm glad that Hollywood is recognizing her talent. Regarding Testament of Youth, Alicia plays the protagonist, Vera, and she does a really good job in carrying this heavy weight of having the whole film center around her. But in reality, there are 3 main points that make me love this film. It's a period drama, the way the relationships between Vera and her loved ones is portrayed, and the whole Oxford slash becoming a writer storyline. As I've mentioned earlier and in other videos, I love history and my favorite period of it is the Great War. So of course I like Testament of Youth because it covers the First World War, but also because the viewer learns so much about the way of life of people 100 years ago. To me, Vera's idyllic childhood represents the way the world was before the World War I, and then we see how England was transformed because of the war and how it tries to mend its broken pieces back together after it's ended. And we also get to see different aspects of the war. For example, from the lives of the people who stayed back in Great Britain rather than going to the front, to the horrible reality of the soldiers fighting, many of whom went to war eager because they thought it was this glorious affair, only to learn pretty soon that it's quite horrible, and then they either came back very changed or they didn't come back at all. And the memoir of Vera Brittain really shows the way the people who made up the lost generation were like. Even though there are always lost generations whenever there's a war, we get to know the people that lost their youth during the Great War. It made me reflect upon that and how today we take so many things for granted. It also made me reflect upon the fact that there's this point in the movie where Vera has to nurse back to health some German soldiers, and her brother and her lover and her friend are off in the war fighting Germans, and yet here she is saving Germans, so that was interesting and ironic. Also, after the movie ends, Vera goes on to become a pacifist, and this is very poignant because despite the war and because of it, she wants to encourage humankind to stop committing the same mistakes over and over again regarding battles and wars. This makes me want to read her memoirs regarding World War II and to know what she thought about the fact that 20 years after World War I, the world was again at war. The core of the story of Testament of Youth is Vera's relationship with three men: her brother Edward, her lover Ronald, and her friend Victor. They're all around 18 to 20 years old at the start of the film, and these four are very good friends. At the beginning, they're all full of hope and dreams, but World War I changes everything for them. And even though the men go off to war, Vera never breaks contact with them. And some of them come back with PTSD, and some of them never come back at all. And the movie portrays beautifully these relationships, and how, despite the fact that they happened during Vera's youth, the impressions that these men made on her life would last till the end of her days when she was around 70. And it's so nice to think that this memoir is a sort of ode to these men. Vera, with her words, manages to give the men a voice and turns them immortal so that the world never forgets them, and the fact that some of them sacrificed their life. And these relationships got me thinking that we really don't know what we are capable of until we're tried and tested. And I like the fact that Testament of Youth sort of reminded me of Gone with the Wind, when Vera becomes a nurse, because her experiences at the front reminded me of Scarlett O'Hara's war experiences during the Civil War. And it was really hard for me to watch this movie because Vera and her friends are about my age. And even if they lived 100 years before, they are like me and my friends. But on a less morbid tone, I also enjoyed the fact that the movie shows how similar girls are today to the way they were 100 years back. Vera gets as excited as I do about boys and waiting for the response of a college to see if you've been admitted to it or not. Yet, regarding the love affair of Testament of Youth, I think it was really bittersweet and beautiful. I enjoyed it because both Vera and Ronald were writers, and it was nice to see how people courted a century ago through letters, and they couldn't go on a date without a chaperone. And to imagine how innocent the way of courting was back then makes me nostalgic. I also want to point out that because I know what Vera did after the movie ends, knowing how much she lost during World War I, and the way that affected her throughout all her life for like 50 years, that only served to prove that the love she had for these three men, her brother, her lover, and her friend, was real. For example, one of her loved ones dies in Italy and is buried there, and when Vera died, she stated in her will that she wanted her ashes to be scattered in that small churchyard in Italy because that's where part of her heart had been for 50 years. And that's exactly what happened when she passed away. So again, that proves how true and deep her feelings for all of the men in her life were, and the movie captures this. As I mentioned in my Educating Rita movie review, my dream career would have been to study English literature at Oxford. So to have Vera desiring so much to go to Oxford and become a writer, even if it was 100 years before me, touched a core with me, and it made me connect with her and make Vera Brittain a role model for me. And another reason could be because I love to write, whether it's an original novel or a piece of journalism. So again, a connection there. And then to see how 100 years ago, the fact that I'm studying to become a journalist would have been something that wasn't that approved by society makes it so daunting and exciting. And in the movie it translates to being a writer rather than a journalist, but it's practically the same. And then to know that after the film, Vera went on to become a great writer whose voice and words managed to capture the spirit of the men who lost their lives during World War I can only dream what a beautiful accomplishment that must be like. This is the end for my movie review. I hope that you not only want to watch Testament of Youth now, but want to read the book as well. I hope you like the story as much as I love it. Let me know if you do. And if you've read the novel or seen the movie, tell me as well in the comment section below. As to the description box, you can find the link to the movie's trailer and its IMDb page. Thank you kindly for watching my movie review of Testament of Youth. I'm Caro, the Mental Traveler, and I hope that your day is wonderful wherever you are in the world. I'll be seeing you soon. Goodbye.